Welcome back to Thrive on Plants, the podcast where we explore the science and the soul of plant powered living. I'm Dr. Daphne Bascom, and today's episode is one you won't want to miss. My guest is the powerhouse behind the Strong Body Green Planet and the Healthification podcast, Kate Galli. Kate is a vegan health coach, a personal trainer, and a fierce advocate for compassionate plant based living. In this heartfelt and deeply personal conversation, Kate shares her transformation from an angry vegan activist to a joyful, values driven coach. We talk about how grief reshaped her mindset, how compassion replaced burnout, and how she now leads with love without losing her voice or losing her purpose. We also dive into what it really means to coach from a place of alignment, the power of mindset in sustainable change, and how to build strength physically and emotionally without compromise. Whether you're a coach, an advocate, or someone who's on a journey toward plant based living or just plant curious, this episode will expand your thinking and deepen your connection to your why. I hope that if you find value in this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and share it with someone you care about. Your support helps us keep growing this movement and reaching more people with messages that matter. Now, let's dive into this powerful conversation with Kate Galli. Kate, welcome. I am so excited to have you on Thrive on Plants.
Daphne, thank you so much. I am super excited to be here with you.
I'm a little intimidated coming from someone who has over 800 episodes, and I haven't even hit triple digits yet, but it is an honor to host you on our growing podcast.
Don't be intimidated. We are on the same page as we were just discussing. And yeah, as I said, huge joy to be able to have this conversation with you.
Thanks. Kate, it's funny because in preparing for our conversation, I started listening to some of your older podcasts, even, and I remembered why I connected so strongly with you. And it was around your person. So I don't want to assume that anyone in the Thrive on Plants community knows Kate Galley. So would you mind sharing a little bit about who you are, where you're from? I think everyone knows you're not from the States. And what was your vegan journey and how you came to be where you are today?
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. I am a vegan health coach. I help vegans and vegans at heart create a fit, strong, confident body they love, aligned with their hearts. That is a big part of my story, as we will come to see. Actually, grew up in New Zealand, so that twang you can hear, it's half Aussie, half Kiwi, even though I am
Interesting.
Australian. Yeah. So I was that little girl that loved animals and ate animals until at 16, I learnt what happened to those animals for me to eat them. So I became vegetarian as a 16-year-old for the animals. And, sadly, it would take me another 23 years before I realized that those animals were still suffering for the dairy and eggs and everything that I wore. And so my vegan journey is almost 10 years ago. I became vegan after watching the documentary Cowspiracy. At that point in time, I had been a personal trainer for a decade and I'd kind of sculpted a body I was super confident in following a high protein, low carbohydrate vegetarian way of eating, consuming up to 21 free range organic egg whites a day
Oh,
and all the low fat dairy. It wasn't balanced at all. However, it enabled me to have the physique on the outside, even if I maybe wasn't that healthy or balanced on the inside. So, yeah, as I mentioned, that was nearly a decade ago. I was working in a pretty gym bro type of a gym. And I remember rocking into the gym one morning after watching that documentary and knowing in my heart that I needed to be vegan and announcing to the other trainers, I'm going vegan. And, I was already the weird one for being vegetarian. And like I was fit and strong and healthy and positive, and they couldn't deny that. But I remember one of the trainers said, well, goodbye, lean muscle mass then.
oh.
And I thought there might be something to that. I was fearful that, maybe I'd lose a bit of muscle, I'd, heaven forbid, put on a bit of fat. And I knew it wasn't about my vanity. It was about making this choice for the animals. Yet I also knew that everyone would be watching, right? I'd had clients for around a decade. They'd stuck with me that long, my whole PT journey. And I knew that if I stuffed this up, it would reflect really badly on the lifestyle when I was in it for the animals. So I'll stop there, but that was the becoming vegan journey.
A and your story is not dissimilar to many of us. I mean, I grew up I won't say I grew up. From my 40s until I became vegan, I was a physique competitor. So the 21 egg whites, completely understand it. That was just
Yeah.
normal fare. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Were you during that time, were you able to encourage either any of the coaches at your gym or any of your clients to become more plant positive?
Yeah, great framing. Certainly not the other coaches, definitely my clients, more plant positive. They were all in it for their health, I
Yeah.
must say. None of them had really made the connection so far as the animals. And I learnt a lot so far as what's effective in your advocacy. I got active as a vegan early days and I'd go to the Anonymous for the Voiceless events and hold the TV screens and connect with other activists. And these were my people, right? That
Mm.
was amazing. However, then I'd rock back into the gym on a Monday morning with my non-vegan clients, and I'd use words that just really weren't effective coming from my truth bomby animal rights activist heart. And I wasn't selling the message well. I was coming with, I guess, the horror and the facts. And I learnt, probably too slowly, that really I needed to lead with the health and the deliciousness. That was so much more effective for my clients. And yeah, a lot of them much more plant positive, as you said. None of them completely vegan. And again, I've learned that I'm here to plant seeds. I'm not here to make a vegan, even though I want a vegan world. That's my huge vision, but more effective being a little bit more patient than what comes naturally and just planting those seeds.
And it's funny because I remember when Rip Esselstyn asked you if you could envision a fully vegan world, it was so endearing to hear you say yes. Um, because I mean, you didn't say when, but you said yes in your lifetime that you hope that that's where we will become.
You must. You have to have hope, right? This is the thing I hold most dear to my heart, this vision of a compassionate, healthy vegan world that we're working towards. And I can't imagine getting up and taking the actions I take every single day if I didn't have hope that it was a possibility. Even if I'm a little bit delusionally optimistic, like much happier place to be than pessimistic, right?
Eh, Optimism is much healthier than pessimism. Um,
For sure.
yeah. It so Kate, the other thing that I remember you sharing is that for some time you were an angry vegan. And what happened in your journey to change your approach from being that person who wanted everyone just to see the truth to knowing that we can lead by example and hope that we will bring others along the journey?
First, I'll say this is a long story, so feel free to butt in wherever you need to. And second, I'd love to think that maybe I would have dragged myself out of angry vegan. I didn't. It was the hardest time in my life that dragged me out of it. And it probably starts with about 7 years ago. My dear mum, who lived in Noosa, where I live now, she rang me, I was in Sydney, and she said, "Katie," it was December, she said, "Katie, I don't know what to do about Christmas because you're the vegan animal rights activist. Your father's anti-vegan, and Christmas
Mhm.
is all about the food. So I don't know what to do unless you want to mastermind a vegan feast and sell the family on it." And I was like, "Amazing. I will so mastermind that feast. Perhaps you can sell the family." And fast forward, came home for Christmas. I cooked 6 new vegan dishes. It was amazing. They were delicious. Mum was so grateful. All the work I'd gone to, she was so grateful. The morning I was due to fly home from Sydney after this amazing vegan Christmas, Mum said, Katie, will you watch What the Health with me? Now, I'd been emotionally blackmailing my parents to watch What the Health ever since I went vegan. Didn't work. It was like, all I want for my 40th is for you to watch What the Health. Didn't work. After the family Christmas, mum was open to watching it. We watched it. She had been a nurse for 30 years,
Mhm.
and she resonated with the broken sick care system as opposed to the preventative healthcare system. She also resonated with the communities that were impacted by hog farms, as you call them in the US. Her heart wasn't there for the animals yet. However, she saw the sense of our healthcare system. She saw the impact on humans. She said, let me try this plant-based thing for 2 weeks. Fast forward a couple of years, mom's plant-based. She's basically vegan. She's listening to all my podcasts. She's my biggest fan. She's watching all the horrific documentaries. And she's basically becoming a vegan animal rights activist, super healthy. Not great for her relationship with dad, who was still
Mhm.
the anti-vegan. And 3.5 years ago, I got the phone call from my father that I always thought I'd get from my mother, because dad's not so healthy in the way that he thinks or eats. And I always thought I'd get the Katie, it's your father. And I got the Kate, it's your mother. And I had spoken to mum that Sunday morning walking along the beaches in Sydney like I did every single Sunday morning, and she was perfect. She was so good. And by 3 p.m. Sunday, she was gone. And as anyone listening who has lost the number one person in your life knows, the all consuming shock and grief that left no space for all that anger and frustration, and I'll admit it, hate and disappointment that I had been carrying around for all the non-vegans in my life in the world. All of that emotion that I'd been spending on that, it was just all taken up in this shock and grief and numbness. And it probably didn't happen straight away because I was just numb for however long. But bit by bit, I decided to focus more on the love and the compassion and the deliciousness. And to a degree, that's a way to honor her because that was absolutely her approach. And also, I had the realization, with mum, zero regrets. We knew how much we loved and respected each other. Our relationship was amazing. With dad, if it had been dad, there would have been regrets. And a huge part of that was my judgment of him and his actions in relation to animals. And that, that's not a, if I want to maintain that relationship, which I do, and we've both lost the person most important to us, then that takes me, leading with a lot more compassion.
Yes, that and I remember hearing you talk about losing your mom and that yeah, losing your person is nothing like anyone can ever imagine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sharing your message of joy and deliciousness, uh, I mean, as hard as it sounds, it was a gift your mom gave you in a way. I don't know how it impacted your relationship with your father or your siblings or, how that family dynamic changed moving forward, but how did you change and what mindset or what motivation shifted in you, one, both to honor your mom, and then secondly, knowing that you can't hold space for pain and sorrow and anger all in it'll consume you, and that's not how you give back to the world if you are so inwardly focused that you can't outwardly focus on what you have to give.
Yeah, so much there. I mean, I guess, and in the same way that when you still eat animals, you're not aware of the heaviness, the burden of incongruency until it's lifted off you. There was almost I guess, a lightness, that energy that wasn't consuming me 24/7 on the negative, right? Like just constantly focusing on what I don't have in common with everyone else around me. That
Mhm.
was absolutely exhausting. So from an energy and happiness, point of view and effectiveness. This is always what I come back to, Daphne. Like, is it effective, right? My angry little vegan heart still wants to like jump out and shake people sometimes. However, the conversation I have with myself, like that vegan world I'm working towards, is this an effective way to get us there?
Mhm,
Likely not. I had to get a little bit strategic. I have an ABC I went through, and A is that awareness of if you keep living in this angry, hateful place, how is your life and how are your relationships going to look in 6 months, 12 months, whatever it may be? And I'm speaking to anyone who is living there right now, consumed by that anger and frustration and sadness that it is so natural that you're consumed by, because it's a really cruel world and it doesn't need
mhm,
to be, right? However, how are your relationships gonna look in 12 months' time? And, it wasn't a pretty picture for me.
yeah,
B is for brainstorm. There were things I needed to stop doing and things I needed to start doing. So I stopped some of that activism, and huge respect to all of my animal rights activist friends out there. I love what you're doing. It was costing me too much, because when you go and spend time with the people who are on the exact same page as you, and then you choose to go interact with your loved ones and clients and friends who aren't,
mhm,
just the stark contrast is
mhm,
so evident. I stopped sharing the horrific footage online, because to share it, you have to see it and then you have to cop the hateful comments. I started sharing delicious meals and recipes online. I started like curating my social media feeds to be more about happy stories and sanctuaries and delicious vegan food creators and people with a really positive attitude. And the C, I guess, in my journey is a commitment, which actually means, yes, it's a commitment to me. I've decided what's more effective long term,
mhm,
and it's also communicating that with everyone else, because you better believe if I'm like announcing that I'm no longer the angry vegan and little angry vegan Kate wants to share, like fries her head,
uh-huh.
people are going to call me on that, right?
Oh, yeah.
People are going to hold me accountable. So, that's the process. And it's not yet natural for me. I think natural Kate is that animal rights activist that wants to yell and shout. So it's a practice. It's a daily practice to be more like the woman that mum was.
Yes. And how has that also changed? I mean, you've been a trainer now for 25, 23, 25 years?
Vegetarian, the 23 comes from how long I was veg, and then I've been a personal trainer 19 years. So a long
Wow.
time, but not quite that long.
Close.
Don't age me there, I'm old enough.
You're a baby. How did that change your approach to well, first, I'd love to know what is your approach to coaching? Because I like to think it's a little different from a vegan perspective than not. But how has transitioning from angry Kate to thriving, loving Kate who focuses on the positive aspects of sharing what it means to be vegan, how did that change you as a coach?
So the funny thing is, when I was still living in Sydney and, mum had passed away, and I had clients that had been with me by that point in time, some of them like 16, 17 years, right? My clients are
Wow,
very loyal.
that's
And
awesome.
but I was still, so I'd made this decision, I'm leading with love now. What it meant though was that I was censoring myself even more. I was living a completely aligned life. However, I was having to bend over backwards to, I guess, be that supportive coach to my non-vegan clients, because I
Mhm,
wasn't getting new clients because I didn't need new clients. I was at capacity and I had been for over a decade. And so it's not like I was bringing on vegan clients. I was with my dear, loyal, long-term clients that weren't vegan. And I was just having to work harder at censoring myself and at being really compassionate to their needs. About a year ago, I made the move from the big city, Sydney, to Noosa, where mum always lived and dad still does, a much smaller town. And the amazing thing is that that move and breaking with all my very long-term clients has meant that I've launched myself into only online vegan health coaching. And I thought I was burnt out from one-on-one work. I was burnt out from working with the non-ideal clients. And again, mad love to all of my clients who I'm friends with. They're either mentors or friends, all of those ex-clients. However, our values aren't aligned in relation to a vegan lifestyle. And so the difference now is that when someone coaches with me and fills in my little online intake form and their answers come through, my heart just like expands because they are on the same page. They're working towards this vegan world, right? They're usually in it for the animals, or at the very least, they're locked and loaded for their health. And I am all in on that. Like, I will do whatever for that individual. So I've got all the energy back for coaching because I'm coaching the right people.
And is that when you started Strong Body Green Planet, or was that yeah,
That's been around for so long, maybe 2016, 2014. I was definitely maybe even before. I was vegetarian when I started that, I'm pretty sure. You
okay.
lose track of time a little bit, but I know I did the podcast for 1 year as a vegetarian, and then I became vegan. Um, but it all feels very aligned now,
And that is an amazing feeling. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
And when you think of coaching, um, I'm assuming just from the little I know of you that you coach in a holistic perspective. So it sounds like when you were in the bro gym that a lot of it was about aesthetics and how I look, and how you looked was probably partly how you got new clients too.
Oh, for sure.
How now that you moved to Now that you left the big city, now that you're only online and really attracting those who are probably aligned with a plant forward mindset, some vegan, maybe some vegan curious. What does coaching mean to you from a mind, body, spirit perspective? And how do you bring all that together? Because, and the question is, the fundamental question is, I find that so much of what we do starts with mindset, and that helping it's not always the fitness part, it's not always the nutrition part, but when the mindset changes, all the other things can come into alignment.
Oh, I completely agree. Mindset is the foundation that basically guarantees your future ongoing success. Or if you don't lay that foundation, it makes everything to come struggle stream, right?
Mhm.
And when someone came to me as a personal trainer or as a vegan health coach, they just want to jump in with the eating and exercising actions, and that's
Yep.
fine. However, we actually do need to lay the framework. And I will say too, in relation to health and mindset, I name my podcast Healthification because I don't see health as just the individual's health. In the Gym Bro Gym, as you like so perfectly described it, it was about getting that perfect aesthetic. And it was very much about your individual body and losing those last few vanity kilos and such. And, that gets tiring quite fast. It's not that inspiring, really. But the way that I see health now is it's the individual, it's the people you care most about, it's your family, it's the health of the planet and all those we share it with. So it's so much broader and more encompassing. And that it seems the type of client I am attracting these days, they're on the same page with that.
Mhm.
So my process is clarity, confidence, consistency. Clarity is the mindset component, and that is most important. And that's where we get super clear on your huge, compelling why and the emotional intensity behind that why. And then we also get really clear on your most important values, those emotional states that you're naturally drawn to, your beliefs. And we create an alignment between the two. Because naturally, if we haven't created that alignment, that congruency, potentially the actions you need to take to achieve your goal, they could be in conflict with something that is dear to your heart that is super important. And then you're always going to be fighting yourself,
Mhm.
right? So we create that natural alignment not by changing a goal or changing a value, but more so by reframing to make sure those actions are supportive and sustainable. And that's just step one in my process. However, that is like the most important step by far, creating that clarity.
And you what are the so you actually mentioned 3 Cs. Can you go through the 3 Cs?
Of course. Confidence. So, confidence initially is about the most effective eating and exercising actions. A lot of people that come to, as you would well know, I am sure, a lot of people that come for vegan health coaching, they're overwhelmed, they're confused, they're fearful. Can I do this right? Is this actually healthy? All that intentionally confusing and conflicting information online, they're pretty overwhelmed, right? So it's confidence so far as how to build these delicious meals that work with your family situation because sadly, most often, someone's going to be coming and not everyone in the family are on the same page, right?
100%. Yep.
And, so we're working around that. But the other part of confidence is building that self belief in yourself and, that certainty of self, which was been one of my most valuable lessons. I joined the gym originally when I was 18, 19 to transform my body. What it really did was transform my confidence. I was a
Mhm.
debilitatingly shy teenager, and knowing that I could choose my curves, as I like to say, like put muscle in the right places and,
Uh-huh.
you know, that was so transformative. It was probably one of the things that kept me in personal training so long, getting to see that transition in other people as well, that confidence that actually is transferable and applicable to so many other aspects of your life once you do it in the gym. So that's confidence. Consistency is that very boring, non sexy, yet vital component of any big lifestyle change, right? Just locking and loading those most effective habits. Part of that is daily WhatsApp support with me. I am an accountability queen. And, I just thought this has been one of the most valuable parts of the coaching, right? Like people just need, I'm self accountable personally, but I think I'm the rare, weird one like that. Most people need accountants. They don't, you learn what to do, that's great, but most people don't yet do what they know. And so locking and loading consistency that goes beyond the program, because again, my ulterior motive, I want you to be a healthy vegan forever. I don't
Right.
ever want you to fall off track. So those are the 3 Cs.
And with those 3 Cs, have you noticed I mean, 3 Cs are probably different when you're 23 and when you're 43. I don't know the demographics of most of the people that you are coaching today, but I know a lot of women I mainly coach women at this point. A lot of women come in, and I think the consistency and confidence are the 2 things that are most struggling. Um, what are you finding? Are your clients global, or are they mainly Australia, New Zealand? And if when you're thinking about the 3 Cs, and I'd also, like to talk a little bit more about, um, the other framework that you use for your coaching in terms of your 8-step self-care guide, which I think is fascinating. But how how do you coach women through midlife to really embrace the 3 Cs and see this as an opportunity for growth? And growth, again, going back to mindset, a growth mindset is to me partly acknowledging that that I can learn how to cook the meals, I can become consistent and confident, that I can develop self accountability because one of the one of our commitments to our clients is what we call sustainable independence. We want to empower you to sustain this lifestyle and to do it in an independent fashion.
Yes. I love that. So for a start, for whatever reason, most clients are my age or older these days. I don't have the youngsters. I'm 48. So
Very
and
good.
a mix of men and women and so far primarily the US, I guess, because that's such a huge market, right? I'm not sure. I guess that is the case. Um, all 3 C's have been equally impactful thus far. However, we'll move to confidence as that was what you brought up. It's almost like it's a relief to have a professional that you've hired validating, whatever it may be. It's nothing new that women that I'm speaking to know that they deserve this level of self-care, and this is the time in their life where, I'm in perimenopause now. I coach women who are peri or menopause, and
Mhm.
what we used to get away with, you all know this so well, what used to work for us in the past as, like, discipline focused with nutrition and exercise, and I call it beat your body mindset, whereas now it's best body mindset, right? Like, I'm coaching my clients that you and your body are a team. You are on
Yes.
the same page. It's about love and compassion and what's best
100%.
for our future self, right? And none of this is new. However, it's almost like permission that the coach that you've hired is saying this is something you deserve to prioritize.
Yeah.
And it's a relief. And but then it sounds great and life jumps in the way. And so that's where consistency, that part of the framework is super important because I'm there reminding them every single day, hey, we're doing this for you and you're important. And I guess that's where we work into the self-care framework that you mentioned, Daphne. I do love an acronym. So it's 8 steps and
I
it
love
spells out
acronyms.
yeah, they're so fun, right? Like, I guess to deviate a little bit, I think early days, I was a personal trainer for so long, and not everyone loves the gym. Weird,
Uh-huh.
but true. And so I kind of found ways to make it fun, to laugh at myself, just to be approachable and to make it fun. And an acronym is one way to do that, or funny names for exercises or whatever it is. We'll go through as many of them as you want, but the S number one in self-care is self-talk. And this
Mhm.
is something I did so much work on early days studying neuro-linguistic programming, the study of effective language, and particularly the language you have with yourself. We're looking to consciously reframe all of that non-supportive self-talk. It's going 24/7. Let's make it supportive. Let's make it the way you talk to your mum, your sister, your daughter, your whoever it is, your best friends. Um, so that's the first part.
Mm.
E in self-care, I've mentioned it already, it's your values. It's elicit your values, those
Got
states you're naturally drawn to. Think of where you spend your time, your energy, your money. No right or wrong, however, they are there. My top value is freedom. Number 2 is integrity. Number 3 is passion. Yours might be completely different. It might be connection, love,
mm,
family, but we elicit those values, and it's a form of self-care to use them as a filter for your daily decision making. So for example, if I'm making decisions that don't line up with integrity, I'm going to feel out. That's not what right with
yeah,
my heart.
yeah.
Now, L, number 3 is lock and load the big rocks that keep you happy and healthy. Personal training days, I was all about the health. What lets you have that body, right? So it's the food and the exercise. Since mum died, since I've gotten older, I've learnt that it's about enjoying the journey as well. It's not just that
Mhm.
huge vision I'm working towards. So these are the things that keep you happy as well as healthy. And maybe that's a walk outside every day. Maybe it's meditation or journaling or time with loved ones. Whatever it is, that's the L. I'll go down to the next one and,
No,
and
no,
then
no,
maybe, yeah.
I'm intrigued. I love this.
F is the filter the people you spend time with. And we all know those energy vampires that just suck our energy. However, also, there are the friends that you just are on such a high after you've spent time with them. And so, equally, it's important to filter more time with those individuals into your life. And so, I think that is so very important to filter the people you spend time with. Step 5, C, create a not to do list. Potentially, I'm suggesting a lot of new habits for our listeners right now, and that could be overwhelming. It starts with creating that not to do list to buy yourself some time, energy, and freedom. And so I am huge on that. The things that you're going to start saying no to. And particularly as women, maybe we weren't so good at that all of our lives. And then maybe when we hit peri and menopause, we start getting a little bit better at saying no. 6, I've returned to. A is for a 24-hour digital detox. My goodness. I did this years ago.
24-hour digital detox?
Yes. I did this years ago and it was amazing, and then I let it slide. I let work creep back into my life just all of the time. I reinstated it at the end of last year, and it's a freedom, like, only do it if you want to start the week to come fresh, focused, full of energy, right?
Who
So
doesn't?
I exactly right. So from lunchtime Saturday to I always cheat. Mine's usually about 21 hours, but it's still good. No devices, whatever rules work for you. Again, I think this is such a amazing kind form of self-care to just switch off for that 24 hours. 7 is probably my favorite. R is for realistic expectations of yourself and the people you love. Now, often we have such
Mm,
high standards and expectations for ourselves, and that can serve us to huge degrees, right? In health and fitness and business, that very much serves us. In relation to our expectations of our loved ones, if we're the vegan or the more plant positive individual, it can cost us a lot. I recommend at times lowering the bar to raise your chance of success. One of my favorite ways to do this is to focus on what we have in common, not those really obvious things that we don't have in common. So, again, realistic expectations. It's a kindness and compassion for yourself and your loved ones. The last one, E, is easy 5-minute quick fixes. So some of these steps have been quite extensive. Sometimes it's like, Kate, I don't have time for all of that. Just give me something fast. So it's a quick fix. It's like sitting in the sun for 5 minutes, listening to a fun song, texting a few people you love, and waiting for those texts to come back. Whatever it is that's cheap and quick and healthy that takes just 5 minutes.
self-care. That's amazing. And I can easily see the not to-do list, that could be hard. And the realistic expectations of others, that could also be hard.
Yeah. Yeah, do you know one of the gifts that I choose to focus on, one of my struggles is comparing my dad to my mum, right? Mum was
Mhm.
one of the most she was the most vibrant, warm, generous, positive. She was that bright spark of happy, not just in my life, in dad's life, but
Yeah.
she still worked in all of it. She just turned 70 when she died, and she still
Mm.
worked, and she was that bright spark of happy in so many people's lives, and it's my natural inclination to compare my father, and that is just not fair. They are different people, and I have to remind myself to have compassion for him and his journey and his map of the world. That's an NLP presupposition where we all have different values and beliefs and goals and life experiences, and more so what we make all of those mean. And maybe if I had lived his life, maybe I would be acting the way that he acts. And I need to have an awareness. And again, as the self care acronym says, the realistic expectations for him. So, I mean, that's my favorite, probably because it's the one that I need to work on most.
Yeah.
It doesn't come naturally yet.
And that Kate, that's a good point because a lot of times I think we tend to focus on the things that we do well.
Mm,
It's easy to look at the acronym and say, I can do this, this, and this, and this. But we really need to prioritize the ones that are most challenging for us, because
100%.
that's where the investment will reap big rewards as opposed to continuing to reinforce our comfort zone, are the things that we tend to do well already.
Oh, it's so true. That which you resist, that's where the value is. That's where the gold is. And
Yep.
again, mum used to say, Katie, you always make it so tough on yourself. I learn these things slowly. And you better believe the information that I'm sharing with everyone online, that is what I'm needing to hear right now. It's selfish. I'm putting that out there because I'm learning and prioritizing it. And I know that a lot of people will be on the same page.
I think for many of us, it's the same thing, and what we crave, we share. And I think in
Yes,
that sharing, you're hoping that you probably know that other people are craving the same thing. And so hopefully you're assuaging something that they are seeking or missing by sharing what all the wonderful things you do.
I agree.
You also mentioned journaling, and I would love for you to. We talk a lot about journaling, whether it's and not everyone loves to journal. And I would probably say that it's something I do off and on, although I do keep a journal by my bedside. I do have a document. I use it for kind of thought dumping, consistency, accountability. Could you share a little bit about you're on version 2 of your journal, and it's one of the most beautiful journals I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Where where did that come from, and why did you create that? Why did you bring that into the world?
Thank you for asking. It comes back to my dear mum again. A number of years ago, she bought me the most stunningly beautiful gratitude diary for Christmas. This was probably about 7 years ago, more. Anyway, it was a work of art and it spoke about gratitude and the sun and the moon and the stars. And it was a daily planner. And that was how I planned my day to come the night before. I wrote everything down and ticked all the boxes and wrote my gratitudes. I never read the writings about the sun and the moon and the stars.
Huh.
Mum would buy me one for every Christmas, and eventually I thought,
Oh,
what if there was a book so beautiful and all of those writings were about living a healthy plant-based lifestyle, and all the weekly actions and monthly goals were aligned with the most impactful actions that I've learnt over, well, it's 2 decades now of, being a personal trainer and creating the most effective mindset so far as your health and the health of the planet. And so the Plant Positive Journal version 1 was born full of recipes, full of artwork, and also that daily planner. And sadly, my mum never got to see it. However, it's dedicated to her, as anyone that buys it will see the dedication. And
mm.
version 2 is in the world right now as well. It's even more beautiful. I'm so proud of this big beast. It's a heavy thing, actually. It flies all around the world. It's dedicated to my dear mum. And the funny thing is, although the journal's been around for several years now, both of them, I've only ever used them to plan my data to come and track my most important keystone habits and all of that. It wasn't actually until last year I left the big city. I'd left behind all my personal training clients. I was creating version 2 of the book and building an online business and still going with the podcast. And I was spread way too thin and I was seeking calm and clarity. They were the 2 words that kept coming up for me in 2024. And so I just started a practice of journaling every evening. And I actually swapped a bad habit. I used to feel like I wanted to drink a red wine and scroll TikTok on my phone in the evening. And I thought, let's swap out that bad habit with walking down to the river near home and just journaling for however long. And I'd start each evening with 2 words, calm and clarity, because I was wanting to journal my way to calm and clarity to find out what the
Mhm.
answer was. Daphne, the answer was journaling. That was what brought me calm and clarity. And it's come to be, I've resisted that habit for years, even though so many people I respect rave about the power of journaling, for clarity of thought, for self
Yeah.
coaching, for gratitude, all of these things that I hold so dear. So I started that habit last year. It's been probably my most impactful habit, like even
Interesting.
more impactful than lifting heavy weights. And I've been obsessed with the gym for nearly 3 decades. I love lifting heavy weights. Journaling has been just an absolute game changer. And I come and go a little bit, but I definitely am more consistent, very much more on the consistent side of things. And the thing is, if you've got 1 minute, you can just write the couple of
Mhm.
words that you're seeking in your life, maybe an I am based identity belief statement, the type of person you're seeking to become. Or if you've got more time and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and anxious, you could spend a beautiful half an hour just getting all of that junk out of your head and down onto paper. And that's what I do, every week or two with that big brain dump type of a journal.
So calm and clarity didn't come from a glass of wine and doom scrolling.
Who would have thought, right? Again, I learn these things slowly sometimes. Once I learn it though, it's locked and loaded. Yeah, it's such a powerful habit.
And how does I mean, I think you said it because I worry that some people think, "Oh, journaling, I need to take 10 minutes or an hour." And you get into this I don't wanna say perfection paralysis thinking, "If I don't journal just right, I can't journal." As opposed to, as you said, it could just be an I am statement. I am happy today. I am proud of what I accomplished today. I am sad. That's a full sentence, a full statement.
Yeah.
How do you how do you get people out of the mindset that whether it's journaling, whether it's training, whether it's even being a vegan, I sometimes I hear people, I don't want to say feeling guilty or saying I'm not a perfect vegan.
Mm.
Um, and I always say there is no perfection.
I completely agree. Perfectionism, it's not high standards, it's zero standards because it's the perfect excuse to not even try. If you set the bar so high, you've basically set up the line for failure before you even start. You're not going to start. I learned this probably first in meditation. I felt like I failed at meditation, and so many people will relate to this
Oh
until
yeah.
I lowered the bar and no pressure. It's the same with journaling. I'm not looking for some big insight or to fill a page or for the little 10-minute timer to go off. I don't set a timer, but start where you're at and know there's no perfect and just trust. And we all start off writing. I don't know what I'm writing. I don't know what I. There's no right or wrong. Just
Mhm.
go with it and trust, and maybe think of the other habits that have felt awkward and ineffective early days, and then you've stuck with it imperfectly and you've kind of found a little bit of a flow. And once you get that initial insight of, wow, this is actually impactful in my life, that's when you focus on that reference point for success. And you remember that when you feel like you want to skip that habit. You're like, no, this is something that, you know, best Kate, I often think of like, what's the best version of me? Or what's the Kate that wants that when I go to bed tonight, I'm going to feel proud? What does her day look like? What has
Yeah.
she made time for? That Kate, your future self. And that's often the coaching that, I share with my clients as well.
And Kate, how again, talking about your clients and actually let's go back to your fitness journey. Um, so you're not an Iron Maiden anymore, at least not working in the big in the big gym. How are you maintaining your fitness? I was just sharing on a call the other day that the cover of this month's Women's Health magazine, they're talking about muscle span, which is kind of a play on lifespan and health span. Muscle span is good, it's not the only answer, but how has your own focus on your training changed, and how does that reframe how you communicate to the women? It sounds like you're coaching mainly women perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. How do we fit it into life and prioritize it so that we can stay physically strong while also staying mentally strong?
Yeah. Do you know it hasn't really changed? I just love it even more. So now that I'm not working in a gym, it's my playground again.
Oh, that's
Like
good.
I don't have to be on. I'm just one of, those clients in a beautiful gym near home. I'm there 4 days a week, which is the least I've ever done in 3 decades of training. I got up to 6 days a week. I've been 4 days a week for quite a few years now. I frame it, and this is my recommendation to clients, I frame it as precious me time. Like,
Yep.
I am so grateful that I have the freedom and physical capacity and money and to be able to train, that it's a non-negotiable for me. I absolutely love it. It hasn't changed at all apart from loving it more because it's not also my job. I do see it as a super effective way to advocate for the animals. Early in our conversation, you shared that, you get as early days as a trainer, you pick up clients because they want that physique, or, you're selling your services by the way you move around in the world. And absolutely, as a vegan health coach, I see that too. I'm here to bust the stereotypes that those silly, sad old stereotypes of the sickly, weak vegan. And particularly as I get older, I love that I'm pushing 50, my clients are in their 50s. There need to be these fit, strong, confident, standing tall and proud women in their plant strong bodies. Like, that is an amazing opportunity to keep advocating for the lifestyle. And for the individual listening who doesn't love it yet, if you're not in a regular exercise routine, I often suggest thinking of the form of movement that you've either loved in the past or you can imagine loving in the future, because none of us love anything that we're new at and not good at yet.
No.
But imagine if you were good at that thing, because you will get good at that thing when you consistently practice it. Could you love it if you were good, if you were seeing the results? Equally, tough coach Kate says that yeah, I'm all about the love and compassion. However, also, some habits are so hugely impactful that we've just got to do the do, whether we feel like it or not. And I would say lifting heavy weights is one of those habits. The benefits are just so huge that make it part of your non negotiable weekly routine.
Do the thing.
100%.
Um, Kate, I know I wanna be respectful of your time. Do you have time for a few more
Of
questions?
course, I'm all good. I am here with you. All good.
Would you mind sharing what's one mindset shift that changed your life, but maybe took you way too long to learn? And you may have already shared it in terms of not being the angry vegan, but is there
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are so many. The one that took me too long was journaling, actually.
Oh,
So I won't harp on that because we've covered it already. I will say early days, a mindset shift that I made was I was very judgmental. And this isn't even just in relation to the vegan journey. Early days as a young personal trainer, when it was all about the physique and it's quite a vain, self obsessed world that we move around in, particularly when we're in our 20s or such. And I came to the realization that the judgment that you put out into the world is reflected back at you.
mhm.
And that is not a happy way to exist. And so I consciously reframed the judgment that I had towards people. And every time one of those judgments would come up, I'd reframe it to something positive. And it's just the energy that gets reflected back at you, and that is your mindset and attitude that you're putting out into the world. Yeah, that was an effective shift that I made many, many years ago now.
And that reframing that's probably a tip that we could all take because
100%.
yeah, especially in the times we're in right now.
Yes. 100%. And it's finding that more compassionate, way to relate to someone else. I was discussing this with Colleen Patrick Goodrow just last week, and she is the
Mhm.
master of compassion and calm. And I kind of had the insight that we have to go first. I'm not here to wait for my dad to extend all the compassion to me. I I'm the one with the awareness of how I want to move in the world, and it's up to me to put myself forward first with that compassion and lack of judgment towards him.
I agree 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah. In maybe another way, I used to have a T-shirt. I may still have a T-shirt. Aspire to inspire,
yeah, beautiful.
because we can't wait for them to change.
No, exactly.
What is next for Kate? I know that you've just launched version 2 of your journal, and we'll definitely share a link to that in the show notes. So anyone, I would encourage you to go if you already have a journal, um, still go out and take a look because I want to know more about the recipes in the journal. But if you already have a journal, you it's probably I mean, my journal I got from the drugstore. It's very kind of plain, but this is really a beautifully put together journal that is it's beautiful enough that it inspires you to want to open it. So I hope that may overcome some of the reticence of people who may be on the edge about journaling. But before I ask you what's next, can you share a little bit about the recipes in the journal? Are those of your creation? Or did you partner with someone to get them?
Yeah, these ones are my creation. Version 1 had some of my dear mum's recipes and, she food was her love language, and when she went more plant-based and eventually vegan, she had so much fun veganizing all the old family favorites.
Oh,
So there
that's
are
fun.
some of her amazing recipes in version 1. I used to always say I'm a lazy non-cook, right? I love to eat all the glorious food. I'm not so good in the kitchen. That was a bit of a limiting belief because I've since seen it as an effective way to advocate for the lifestyle. And you better believe it. It needs to be delicious. Like I am not serving up. I love what I eat every single day. However, I'm not serving up my normal dinner or lunch to family and friends that are non-vegan when they stay. It's going to be a little bit more abundant. So the journal's full of those easy 5-minute meals, the more abundant, decadent meals that you're going to use when you're trying to impress your non vegan family members. Food prep over meal prep. I'm a huge fan of food prep. So
Mhm.
I'll make a few pillars, food pillars every single week, some sort of fibrous veg, some sort of starchy veg or grain, a plant protein, and a decadent sauce or cheese substitute. So lots of those recipes. Um, yeah, I recipe tested, for a lot of the first half of last year, and the winners are in the journal.
Awesome. And I love how you have the cheese substitute.
That's so many people's stumbling block, right? Eggs was actually mine. I got grossed out by cheese. Eggs was my stumbling block, and you better believe I had some omelet and frittata flops early days vegan. Like I couldn't make it work until I learned from others online. And now, the tofu scramble, which is in version
Mhm.
1, or the frittata, which is in version 2. You know it. Anything can be vegan and deliciously decadent and abundant.
100% agree. And but it may take a little practice.
Yes. Yeah, don't judge every vegan meal by that one recipe flop or that one disappointing meal that you have out. We've had plenty of bad meat meals in our life. It's just sticking with it and finding those winning recipes.
And where I was going before that is, what is on your heart? I mean, what is next for Kate in terms of what you want to deliver to the world or how you want to continue to share your message?
It's funny because with so many things, I say this is a venture of the heart, which is amazing because it means that everything I'm doing right now is on my heart and so close to my heart and completely aligned. Probably one of my slowly learnt lessons was the power of community. And you know this, Daphne, we both have school communities, and I've historically been a little bit of a lone wolf, I will do the do because it's aligned with my heart and goals. However, the longer we are vegan, the food becomes the easy part, and finding like-hearted, like-minded
Mhm,
people is the harder part.
mhm.
And I left a big city where I had an activist community, and literally every weekend, more than once a week if I wanted, I could turn up and spend time with people who thought exactly the same as I did in relation to veganism and animal rights. I live in a city where I know one vegan, and there's no exclusive vegan restaurant here.
Oh,
All right.
wow.
So
Okay.
again, there was an amazing one, the best restaurant in the world that I've ever been to, and it didn't last. It struggled for 3 years. It was amazing. The food was phenomenal. Every non-vegan that I took there loved it, and it didn't survive. And so on my heart right now is building online community, keep creating a safe space there. And this is the challenge. Maybe I'm being delusional. However, I want that safe space not just for my animal rights activist vegans. I also, and they're my people. However, I also want to be amazing at welcoming on board anyone who is plant curious. I like to say vegan at heart because even if you're not leading a vegan lifestyle, people are compassionate. They want the best for themselves, their family, their animals, and the planet. Their actions might not align yet, and we need to support them on their way there, right? We need to welcome them on board, not like present this perfect club, which is just full of perfect angry vet. Like that's not welcoming.
No, no.
So that's, the one-on-one coaching, the journal, the podcast, the online community. That's keeping my plate full right now, and that's pretty much all I envisage for the very near and long term.
Calm, yes.
Yes.
Calm and clarity requires prioritization too.
It does, it does. I no more little ventures of the heart need to force their way into my body. I There's enough right now.
Well
The heart's bursting.
well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
And so knowing that your heart is bursting, what does it mean to you to thrive on plants and live with purpose?
It's completely alignment and, like, the self-certainty, and this has been a repeating theme in my story from the debilitatingly shy teenager that joined the gym to the business from hell, which was a gym franchise that I was
Mhm.
part of where I had no freedom and I learnt to back myself in business. So I learnt to back myself in health in the gym. I learnt to back myself in business in the business from hell. And in recent years, having complete congruency and alignment in the way that I do online business, not just myself, but the clients I serve. That is what I'm all about now. Just that there's a freedom and ease and energy when you know you're on the right path and you're not making compromises.
Mhm.
It gives me so much more to give back to my ideal client when that is the individual that I'm serving. I don't even know if I answered the question, but I just got lost in the question.
No, the question was, what does it mean to thrive on plants and live with purpose?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
It's
and it also means it's all-consuming, right? Because it's all-consuming in a good way that everything is congruent and aligned. However, also it's so important to me that the off button is the struggle street for me. However, thriving on plants means that you look and walk and act the part. And, speaking to all my passionate vegans listening, that involves that self-care and that time out that we went through to be able to advocate effectively for the lifestyle thriving on plants. We need to have that self-compassion as well.
100% agree. Compassion for self, compassion for animals, compassion for the planet.
Yeah.
Comp Yeah, and
And
compassion
compassion
for
for the non-vegans.
that's true. Non-vegans yet.
Exactly. Vegans in Waiting, as another amazing podcast guest, Matthew Holtzman, said. I think I like that.
Kate, is there I mean, I don't know how to thank you. I have a whole list of things that we could talk about, and hopefully I'll be able to invite you back sometime to dive deeper into some of the other topics that I know are near and dear to your heart. But is there anything that you wanna share that we didn't touch on today before I let you get on with your day?
We covered so much, and it is such a treat for me speaking to another vegan on a vegan platform. I guest on a lot of non-vegan shows, and that is a part of my advocacy these days. I wanna turn up as the positive, accepting, compassionate vegan. However, I still need to censor myself a little bit. So to be able like, this is my heart. I love to be able to have these natural go anywhere, say anything conversations with the right host and the right audience. And, we covered enough. I know your audience will know where to find me in the show notes. And super grateful for this conversation and super open to coming back for a round two anytime.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you. You have definitely been a light in my life, um, and I share your pain of having lost my person and know how motivating that can be in terms of, being that inspiration and hope that you can you can be the light for others that that person was for you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I didn't know you'd lost your person as well. Then thank you so much for sharing that and for the warm, safe space that you created today.
It's been a pleasure, and we are always here because we walk hand in hand, and I wish you a wonderful day and can't wait to see you back on the Thrive on Plants podcast.
Amazing.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you, Daphne.
What a wonderful conversation. Kate reminded us that mindset isn't just about pushing harder or thinking more positively. It's about choosing alignment over anger, compassion over judgment, and purpose over performance. Her story of transformation, sparked by both personal grief and professional evolution, it's a testament to what's possible when we let go of resistance and when we lead with heart. Kate offered us a powerful truth that emotional weight can be heavier than physical weight, and that releasing it can unlock new dimensions of energy, joy, and connections. If Kate's message resonated with you, I encourage you to connect with her. You'll find links to her podcast, her coaching programs, her journal, and her social channels all in the show notes. And if this episode made you think differently, feel deeply, or want to take inspired action, please share it. That's how we grow this community. And I would love for you to join the Thrive on Plants community because we will grow one mindset shift at a time. But until next time, keep thriving on plants and living with purpose. Be well. The information shared on the Thrive on Plants podcast is intended solely for educational and informational purposes. It is not medical advice, and it should never be used as a substitute for personalized guidance from a qualified healthcare professional. Always consult with your physician or healthcare provider before making any changes to your nutrition, exercise routine, supplement use, or your overall wellness plan. The opinions and advice shared by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Vegan Gym or its team. While we aim to bring you high-quality, thoughtful conversations, these perspectives are not intended to replace professional medical care. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, you have the power to thrive on plants and live with purpose.